Hello. Today, I bring you a series of murders that shocked Argentina. Cayetano Santos Godino is one of the darkest and most disturbing figures in Argentine criminal history. His name became synonymous with terror and cruelty, leaving a deep mark on society at the beginning of the 20th century. Born in Buenos Aires on October 31st, 1896, Cayetano had a childhood marked by poverty, violence, and abandonment. His father was an alcoholic and his mother, a hard-working woman, but absent due to her multiple jobs. The Godino family arrived in Buenos Aires, Argentina, from Italy. His parents Fiore and Lucia chose to disembark in 1888 with all their hopes placed on this new beginning. The couple was originally from the town of San Demetrio Carone, in the province of Calabria, in Italy. Fiore, the father, was responsible for the training of who would become the first serial killer in Argentine police history. Fiore was an alcoholic and a bully, and had contracted syphilis some time before Cayetano was born. The child was born with serious health problems. In fact, during his first years of life, he was on the verge of death several times. Throughout his childhood, Cayetano was the victim of severe beatings and mistreatment by his father, and later his brother would join in the abuse. Cayetano was not the only child of that marriage. They had another son who would suffer serious illnesses. His brother Antonio was epileptic and furthermore, following his father's example, years later he became an alcoholic. Cayetano's childhood was spent on the streets, wandering around. From the age of 5 he attended several schools, from which he was always expelled due to his lack of interest in his studies. From a very young age, Cayetano demonstrated antisocial and violent behavior, which led him to be rejected by his classmates and to have problems with the authorities. On March 29, 1906, Cayetano committed his first murder, which went unnoticed, and was only discovered years later when he himself confessed to the police. According to his story, in 1906 he took a girl of approximately 3 years old and took her to a remote place where he tried to strangle her. Afterwards, he buried her alive in a ditch, which he covered with cans. The authorities, upon learning of this crime, went to the place, but found that a house had been built. However, a missing persons report dated March 29, 1906, was registered at the police station for a 3-year-old girl named Maria. The missing girl was never found. On April 5, 1906, just a few days after committing his first murder, Cayetano was denounced by his father, where he discovered that he had tortured domestic birds. Fiore finds a dead bird in his son's shoe and, under his bed, a box where he keeps the corpses of other birds. On December 6th, Fiore and Lucia Godino, fed up with the constant problems caused by Cayetano, who was then 12 years old, handed him over to the police again. This time, he was sent to a reformatory where he remained for 3 years. While he was locked up, he attended classes. Cayetano's stay in the reformatory did not manage to regenerate him. On December 23, 1911, he returned to the streets. Now he was a cold-blooded and potential criminal. He returned to live with his parents, and they found him a job in a factory, where he quit after 3 months. He again began to wander the streets, but this time he did not spend time in the familiar neighborhoods. The streets led him to frequent places and people of low moral standing in the city of Buenos Aires. He began to suffer severe headaches that translated into desires to kill, especially after drinking alcohol. The last of his crimes is probably the best documented of his career. On December 3, 1912, his victim, barely 3 years old, went out as he did every morning after breakfast with his parents to meet his friends to play. Cayetano leaves his house. After wandering around the streets for a while, he finds the group of boys playing. He plays with them without arousing any suspicion because his appearance has always allowed him to gain the trust of his victims. Shortly after, he manages to convince Gesualdo to accompany him to buy some sweets. The victim and his murderer go to the store where they buy chocolate bonbons. He gives her some sweets and promises her more if she agrees to accompany him to a certain remote place. Once at the entrance of the place, the child cries and refuses to enter. But the murderer has waited too long, and without thinking, he violently grabs him by the arms, corners him near an oven. He knocks him down with force and immobilizes him by placing his right knee on his chest. Cayetano knows the mechanism and removes the rope he wears as a belt and begins to wrap it around Gesualdo's neck, giving it 13 turns, and proceeds to strangle him. But Gesualdo tries to get up, so Cayetano proceeds to tie his feet and hands, cutting the rope with a lit match. He again proceeds to suffocate him with the rope, but the child refuses to die. The murderer looks for another way to kill him. Cayetano looks for some suitable tool. His search takes him outside the premises, where he runs into Gesualdo's father, who asks him about the whereabouts of the child. Cayetano answers that he has not seen him and suggests that he go to the nearest police station to file a complaint. Meanwhile, the killer finds an old 10-centimeter nail, returns with it to his victim, and, using a rock as a hammer, drives it into the dying child's temple. After covering it with an old sheet of zinc, he flees the scene of the crime. That night, during the wake for his victim, Godino makes an appearance. After observing Gesualdo's body for a while, he flees the scene crying. According to his statement, he wanted to check whether the body still had the nail in its head. Unfortunately for him, 2 police officers had already suspected Cayetano in previous cases. That same morning of December 4th, 1912, they raided Godino's house and arrested Cayetano. In his pockets, they found a newspaper article still fresh that recounted the details of the murder, and in his pants the remains of the rope with which he had hanged Gesualdo. He was a person lacking empathy and felt no remorse or guilt. He was superficial in interpersonal relationships and was self-centered and impulsive. Cayetano's childhood, marked by poverty and violence, may have contributed to the development of his violent behavior. His victims were children between the ages of 2 and 10, whom he chose for their vulnerability and ease of manipulation. Among the crimes attributed to him are murder, attempted murder, arson, and assault. He was arrested in 1912 at the age of 16 after an intense police search. During the trial, he confessed to several of his crimes, displaying a coldness and lack of remorse that shocked society. Despite his young age, he was found criminally responsible and sentenced to life imprisonment. Cayetano Santos Godino spent the rest of his life in various penal institutions, being transferred on several occasions due to his violent character and escape attempts. Cayetano Santos Godino died in Ushuaia prison in 1944 at the age of 48. He spent long days in prison, without friends, without visitors, and without letters. He died without confessing remorse and from internal bleeding caused by an ulcerous process, but it is known that he had been frequently mistreated and sexually assaulted. According to the prison police, he died at the hands of inmates who beat him to death after Cayetano killed the cat that the prisoners had as a pet. The Ushuaia prison was finally closed in 1947. When the cemetery was eliminated, the bones of this serial killer had been looted. Cayetano Santos Godino's apparent lack of empathy and remorse has been the subject of numerous psychological analyses. Cayetano's crimes caused a great shock in Argentine society at the beginning of the 20th century. The repetition of the murders, the cruelty with which they were perpetrated, and the young age of the murderer generated a climate of fear and insecurity. The case inspired numerous works of fiction, such as novels, films, and television series. These adaptations helped perpetuate the legend and consolidate its place in Argentine popular culture. Cayetano's crimes revived the debate on the death penalty in Argentina, although it was ultimately not implemented. The case helped promote scientific research on criminality and develop new techniques for the identification and capture of criminals. This case highlighted the importance of childhood in the development of personality and behavior. The need to pay greater attention to children growing up in violent and disadvantaged environments was recognized. The case demonstrated the power of the media to influence public opinion and construct narratives about criminality. In conclusion, Cayetano's crimes had a profound and lasting impact on Argentine society. His case continues to generate debate and reflection on issues such as the nature of evil, individual and social responsibility, and the role of the media in the construction of reality. Please comment what you think of this story, if you already knew it, and if you know another criminal who is worse or equally ruthless. I would appreciate it if you subscribe and share this story. Thank you, and look forward to the next video.